With the release of the new Army Painter Fanatic line, I managed to pick up the complete set by selling an arm and a leg. And in today's video, the first in the series, we're going to be going through the washes to see what's new, what's different from the previous range, and do a side-by-side comparison of the two. Wait, why don't we have a flesh wash? So first up we have an almighty increase in colours from the past range, from 11 to 17, with a wash medium to complete the new set. Washes are a great tool to have in your paint range as they can create shading on a miniature with little effort. The paint is a lot more fluid and transparent than the normal acrylic paint range, so the liquid can glide into the recesses, allowing you to pick out the shadows of the miniature with ease, giving you a nice shaded look in no time. I've got some goblin test subjects from a previous video and resprayed them with some Vallejo primer, so we will be able to see the colours of these washes much better. Note the goblins on the square bases will be painted with the old range, and the circular based gobos will be with the new Fanatic range. First up was the green tone. This is always a great colour to shade orc skin and green clothing, or even if you want to achieve a quick ghostly look for your miniatures. I did notice, however, that the colours are a little bit different, and I gotta say, Army Painter, I think I prefer the old colour more. Military Shade. An excellent colour if you want a slightly darker looking orc skin, also great for historical miniatures wearing fatigues and armoured vehicles. And would work well also on Imperial Guard troopers of the Jungle-tastic Catachans. A red tone, a colour that I barely used in the old range, and it probably shows as it ended up a smidge patchy as I didn't shake it enough. Which is my tip to you. Always give your paints a shake, even the washes, just to make sure that the pigments and solution are well mixed for best results. The blue tone actually is a quite nice subtle colour, and I could see this being used for a quick plasma glow, or something ethereal looking. However, I have noticed with a few of the new paints that when they dry really muted compared to the old range. So for this blue, I actually had to go over it a second time with a loaded brush just to give the shaded areas a little bit more definition. And this turned out much better. Now onto the purple tone, and my second favourite paint in the range. It's a quite vibrant, punchy colour and it flows into the recesses really well, compared to the old paint. I could see this being used on elves of the dark variety, as well as Slaanesh and other fun fantasy miniatures like lizard people. Light tone is a colour that I use more and more these days, and it can be beneficial on lighter colour materials such as cream and beige clothing. Anything bony or skeleton related like Tomb Kings would also benefit this, and I also like to use this wash paint on hair. Soft tone is ever so slightly darker than the light tone, and can be used in the same manner to create a little bit of variation, especially if you have a whole unit of rank and file undead skeletons going on. But also give this paint a go after you have applied a white transfer or a decal onto something. This will weather it down a smidge so it will look slightly worn. Strong tone along with dark tone are probably my most used paints in the whole of the range. Pretty much every project will have either one or both being used on clothing, wooden weapons and scenery, and metals. These dark coloured shades will turn a flat looking miniature into something more detailed in seconds, especially on armour, which on fantasy miniatures is everywhere. So with that being the last of the like for like revamped colours, are there any standout favourites for you so far? Because now we're going to check out the brand new colours in the wash range. First up was dark red tone. I was hoping for a nice, deep, rich, dark red colour like a vibrant scarlet. But instead we got more of a brownish, red, maroon colour. I also had high hopes for the dark blue tone. And I was thinking, finally, yes, a nice deep ocean navy colour. I could use this on space marines, lizardmen, mystical orbs, and magic items, and oh, it's turned out looking a bit drab. But what's not drab is my new favourite colour, magenta. This is a nice vibrant paint, and keeps its colour more than the dark blue. I can see a few uses for this, such as fantasy clothing like on dark elves for example, and if you are a Tzeentch god worshipper, I can imagine this going on a plethora of miniatures in that range. Next up is orange tone. I don't paint orange too often, besides the odd bit of hair here and there, and some rust now and again on some miniatures. So what would you guys think this orange paint would be good for? Tell us some wild and wacky ideas below in the comments. Like a squig racing game sponsored by Sunny D. Sepia tone. This one seems like another nice mid-brown coloured wash. At first glance it looks a little bit similar to either the soft tone or the light tone that we used earlier. So it will be interesting to compare them once dry. It's got a nice enough coverage and again would be good for something like Tomb Kings. To dirty up some metal good and proper, we have the new rust tone. This one is a little bit unusual as it's definitely as liquidy as the rest of the range, but feels like it goes on thicker. The coverage again is pretty good, and I'll be using it once more when we go through the technical paints in a later video, as there are a couple more rust paints in that range also. Now we have two brand new skin tones to choose from, and they are strong skin and dark skin shade. Both are a much darker colour than the old flesh wash from the previous range. Both of these paints would be great for darker skin tones, and I think they'll be pretty handy if you want to create a murky looking armour or dirty up some vehicles. A little bugbear of mine is why the flesh wash wasn't introduced into the new range, because before it was such a good colour, and now we only have two dark skin tone shades to choose from. So I decided to buy a couple more old flesh wash paints, just to keep me going for a little while. The new dark skin shade has a nice dark reddishy brown colour to it. Kind of sounds similar to what I said earlier on in the video. And you would be right. If I put up the dark red and the dark skin tone goblins next to each other, there's hardly any difference between the two. And it's kind of a similar story with the sepia and the light tone paints. There is very little difference between the two. For me personally, I would have dropped one of these two and kept the mid-brown from the old range, because this was actually a different colour, and would have provided a nice variation of brown washes in the range. I've taken some photos of the new range so that you can see them side by side as a colour reference. Feel free to pause the video on the image stills so that you can see them a little bit better. Overall, the colours are pretty good and you've got some nice variation, but I'm definitely keeping my mid-brown and flesh wash from the previous range just to complete the set. For those that are wondering what the medium wash does, this is a colourless paint which will allow you to thin your wash paints down and make them more transparent. So let's do this with the purple tone. Here on the palette there is about 2 parts purple to 1 part medium, and as we mix the paints you can see how much we are thinning the purple colour, enabling us to see the white palette underneath. Painting this onto the goblin, you will see this new desaturated purple is still running nicely into the recesses, giving you a lighter shade. And we can see the difference when we bring up our previous purple goblin just to see what this medium wash is capable of. Because I use washes on metallic paints all the time, I painted more goblins using the wash range over a silver. Hopefully this will give you a good introductory into the new washes, and I'll also be going through the technical paints next on a series of videos for the channel. To not miss out on those, just lightly tap that subscribe button for more videos.